Your version of perfect may be my version of good enough. Let's get into this and how the words that we use can be beneficial to us in our mental space, but can be often misunderstood by others. I've discovered over time that certain words that we use can be beneficial to us, but certain words can be misunderstood, can be misconstrued into a different meaning depending on where they're coming from and the filter that they are seeing it behind. Different words mean different things to different people, and how the words are used and implemented in our daily lives, including writing. There is this perception in how we say things and how they are received, and the words that we use and what it can mean for other people. I've often told people these days that I aim now for good enough with my work, and I don't strive I often tell people now that I aim for good enough with my work, and I don't strive for perfection in my work, because perfect doesn't exist. I am naturally a perfectionist, and at times that has caused me issues with my work. Not just my work, but my mental health. I learned a long time ago that what would be better is to not just accept that perfection doesn't exist, but to change the words that I use so that they don't cause an issue in here and start holding me back from things. I learned a long time ago that how I phrased things was important, so I just adjusted how I said things, not how I worked. I may put more time and effort into my work than other people do compared to their work. It all depends on each individual person. But what I have never done is adjusted the quality of my work. I still put in everything that I am capable of at that time. I still do the best work that I can possibly do, and the quality has never changed. I mean, it's gotten better, but how I work, and I don't slack off, I don't shortcut, I don't cut back. I still strive to do the absolute best that I'm capable of before anybody ever sees my work. No matter how many times I go over a piece of my work, it can always be edited yet again. I could give it to 100 editors, 100 readers, ask them to pick it apart, to find all the errors, all the mistakes, all that might need fixing, and still there will be stuff I adjust, I switch, I edit, and in 100 years after that same process again and again and again, I could give it to 100 editors at that time, and again, there will be people who find issues with the grammar, with the plot, with the story, with anything. There is no absolute finish line for any work, not in art especially. Everything reaches a finish point, but it can always be done better. The only thing that happens when we edit a piece of work again and again and again and again and again is that we learn to edit really good. We don't learn to publish. We don't learn better storytelling. We simply learn to edit better because we are only practicing editing millions of times with that piece of work. And we could easily edit a work to death and change the entire story after years of working on it. And again, we can bring that to that future point and have to work on the book and edit it once more. A lot of people will assume that if you speed write, or if you go really slow to write, or if you pump out the books, or if you go slow to pump out the books. That too is a determining quality for how the work is done. But I'd argue that it's not. If you think about back in the day, Stephen King could churn out books. And for me, you can disagree, you can agree, but for me, he's a very good writer, because when I read his work, I get lost in the work. When I pick up a book of his, I know that most likely I am going to enjoy it. There's plenty of books that he's written that, number one, I haven't even read yet, and two, that I haven't enjoyed that I have read. It's the way with any writer, any reader. It's rare that a reader probably will like 100% of everything somebody does. On the flip side, we have George R.R. Martin. Again, to me, he's really quality. I like his work. That makes him quality. Someone else might not think he's quality. He takes a long time to put out a book. So I'm just using what I like. You can use any authors you like that could fit that role. So you got one who's writing fast, churning out the books. You got another who doesn't write fast and turn out the books, but they're both really good quality. And I'm purposely using traditional because that is yet another thing that a lot of people will judge. If they see it's an indie writer, they have the assumption that instant lack of quality. Now, that for me also, you have to be careful of, because there are indie writers who have done traditional publishing. We may never have heard of them. They got fed up. They went indie, and a lot of people will instantly look at that label and think, well, this person's not quality. This person could have hit bestseller lists a long time ago. You may not ever have heard about them before. And then we automatically see indie. Well, that must mean they aren't that quality. But that also is not a good determining factor, because I have read some indie books that, yes, some will shortcut, some will not put in the time and effort, but plenty of traditional, they have to meet the deadline. They will shortcut and cut corners to get to the deadline as well. And I have read plenty of indie who they are really quality writers. A lot of independent authors, they're judged under this huge filter of they're low quality, when we have the option to spend a lot more time editing, sending it out to various people to get thoughts and critiques and help on. A lot of indie authors will spend the money on a lot of good editors and a lot of good book cover people, and it goes on. So even that for me is one of those, it's just a word. It does not mean quality. It is why for me, now I'm doing it on here, but I will leave a first chapter, usually it's the first chapter of my work on my website, so people can see straight out this is what you're getting into. Anybody who offers a sample of that book, that's what they're doing. They're helping you. Even the big retailers will often allow you to download a sample so you get even more variety of the book, so you can see, is this person writing decently? The issue with perfection is that any book, our book, another's book, books from the past, books that have yet to be written, they will never reach a state of perfection. Not for any editor, not for any writer, not for anybody whatsoever. And down the road, somebody will have even more critiques that can be made from the book. Other people who might not like it now will learn more through life, randomly pick it up, and enjoy the book. I want to make a very clear point to anyone who has that issue of wanting to reach perfect, thinking that your book will hit perfect if you just keep editing it and editing it and editing it, and people keep saying that that is what you need to do. There is a point but you have to reach where you have done the absolute best that you can, that you have had people help you go over the work, you have hired an editor, you have found a quality editor, because there are some, I cannot stress this enough, they will charge you a lot of money. Check the work they edit, because with them as well, money is not a determining factor in quality. I have heard far too many who have been taken out of thousands of dollars. The piece never got edited. They just took the money and then took off. Or they have charged a ton of money. And when you look at the work, you're going, a beta reader, a friend who doesn't even know writing could have done this better. Always check. See what they have done. Look at the authors. See if you could talk to the authors, because the majority of us are more than happy to discuss what it's like to work with our editor. There are plenty of editors who they don't even have the qualifications to edit, but they will charge you a ton of money. Whereas on the flip side, I have seen editors who work for free to help people because it's the work they love, not they don't need that money. And that's not a determining quality factor either for the quality. Check resources, check who they've done, see if you can get samples of the work that they've done. These rules around perfection and quality and all of that, they pretty well apply to anyone, and in most, I would think most topics, writing, art, life, most things. Unless, we're talking surgeries, we kind of want perfect done if possible. The reader is the one who determines the quality the most. Each reader, each book, it's up to that single person. Far too many work to get on lists, work for popularity things. I just don't think awards and lists, for me, again, I'm super picky, I'm aware of this, I have confessed to it, but I don't think that for me also is a huge determining factor. Usually when I find work and work I enjoy, it's random. It's from people mentioning it, but often it's random people. The ads on Twitter, Facebook, all of it just right over my face. Now, if you do something unique like a trailer and that first screenshot's gonna catch my attention, or you share, what I like to share are quotes from the books and pictures and just little things like that here and there. And if someone shares something like that, it will catch my attention. Or they'll share the book cover and it catches my attention. It's those little things that actually get my attention. I just, anything sales is like, ooh, nope, nothing there. So if you're struggling at times with the pursuit of perfection, like I have in the past, that's something that you can try. Simply adjust your words. It doesn't mean lower the quality of the work. It does not mean take less time on working on it, unless you are spending years editing, when in reality you know deep down that you're just procrastinating because you're afraid to publish the work. Find that middle ground of, I have done the best that I can with this book, but now it's time to let it go. It's time to get it out into the world. That's a huge advantage of going indie. We have a lot more control over our work, but that is what you're going to have to deal with. Words and perceptions, and a lot of people will auto-assume that your work is less quality. I think that's starting to change the more that people get into reading it, and more traditional authors get into it. but there is always that perception. Somebody will automatically filter into a word, say that, like what I do, saying I strive for good enough, not perfect. And they will from then on have this filter they have in front of you that instantly everything they're perceiving is coming through that. Oh, if you are this, then I'm going to auto assume when you say this, well, you're doing less quality. If you are rushing your books out, it's because they are less quality. When in reality, I could take a year off of publishing and writing, write and edit a bunch of books, and then when I come back, publish a brand new book, either every single day to get them out, once a week, once a month, whatever it is. We don't ever know the behind the scenes of what an author or anybody else is doing. They could spend years building up a library and a catalog of stuff that then they instantly just start blasting their publishing out there, and somebody will come into that and automatically perceive from that filter, well, this is not going to be that good a quality because look how fast they're getting that work out. I used to be able to get work out every 3 months. I would write a book in about 3 to 6 months. I would get it edited, but my editing would be between all that books that I've been doing before, so that I would edit in the morning, edit it at night, edit another during the afternoon, write in the mornings, and then everything for daily stuff would go in between there. So I was technically working on a bunch of different books at once, so I was able to get out more books more often. And a lot of people didn't realize that I was doing all this previous work in the books. So there have been plenty of comments where, again, they see through that filter, and you have to be aware of this because people like to auto-assume things, that then the quality is very low. And if they find even one error in your work, that is their confirmation bias being, I knew you didn't do good work. Or a lot of times what I have found is I have this issue, so I have to be very careful with it, is that often if I know them or I've interacted with them, I'll have an extra critical eye. It's hard to turn that off. There's even often I have found myself not able to be as critical because there's a part of me that doesn't want to be mean to them when I read the work. And it feels mean to be critical. Even though my own work, I am just like, I am the worst when it comes to my own work. So there's always those hidden things inside of us that want to take over. Hidden perceptions that auto come up when we hear certain words, when we see certain work, like from indie authors. And I have that too. I am not judging people who have that. I'm just trying to give you pointers, and when I say certain words, what it means, but also pointers that I'm hoping that, like me, hearing another author who's been at this for a very long time, that you are able to see there does come a point when you need to let go of that, I will make this perfect. It has to be perfect. Perfect. There is no perfect. You will learn only to edit better if you keep working on edits and working on a book, editing it. It will never reach perfect. So it's better to strive for good enough or the best that you are capable of at that time than the idea of perfection. Perfection holds us back. I used to spend a very long time writing, editing, and going over my work until I realized that what I was really doing was holding myself back because I was scared to publish the work. I'm still pretty scared when I hit publish. My perfectionist side gets in there, and it's still, for a lot of stuff, will hold me back. And I keep having to force myself to remember to focus on good enough, doing the best that I can, and then releasing it out into the public. Every author, writer, indie, whatever you want to say, has their own method. That method is their voice as much as the writing. And we all have different ways of doing stuff. There is no one way to do anything. Even grammar or telling a story, there is not one way to do it. Too many people seek perfection, and they automatically figure that if somebody is saying they strive for good enough, that their quality has lessened, that they are not trying to do the best that they can. When most of us default to that way, it's only the people who don't try to actually go that extra step and put in that extra effort that I would say are lessening the quality, just because it's hard work, just because it takes time, just because it takes work. I have edited a book so many times that I've lost count. And then still, in the end, after publishing it, I reread it down the line and I'm going, you know what? I could do this, I could do that, I should do this, I should fix that. So there is never an end game to how perfect you can make something. As I've said, it does not mean lessen the quality you're putting in or the time or the effort. It just means try to change that wording and find the point where you feel confident enough that the work is at the best that you can do. Even if you just have reached a point where you know you are not capable of doing better, but there can be better done, that's sometimes when I send it off to the editor for the first thoughts, because I start getting so stuck in here after editing it so many times that I need her eyes on it to see if what I'm seeing is reality or if I'm seeing a bad quality work where it's not as bad. Because something could be going on up here, stress, whatever you might be going through, that affects that. And sometimes that is the point where you need that extra set of eyes to look and to discern issues, which is why it's important to have whatever works for you. For me, my editor is my first reader. Many have groups that they can send it to, or family members who are really good at giving that critique. Family and friends, usually people will say don't use because they can't be super critical, but it's always just you need to find the person who can give you the feedback without the emotional part of it attached. So if you have someone in your life who can focus like that, then they're going to be good at giving you feedback. And there are plenty of writing groups who now want to, they help each other. But that also, you have to be always careful, because some of them have that my way is the only way, or this is the only way to do writing or a story. And again, they'll get back into that loop where you're just constantly working on it, and you're not actually putting out the work. For me personally, I have a lot of stories in me. I want to get them out. I want to let you read them. So spending 10 years on one story when I have a ton of stories constantly percolating and bubbling in me, it's not conducive to me to spend more and more time editing than getting it the best that I can get it. Even then, accepting that I am probably going to overlook something, because it never fails. You can have a ton of eyes on your work, and you hit that publish button, and you're suddenly going, ugh, that got overlooked. Okay, we gotta fix that. There's also an author, I'm not gonna say their name because I'm criticizing the idea, not them, who says that if you cannot write a first draft that only needs minor adjustments, like words adjusted or commas and all that, that you are writing a sloppy first draft. To them, editing means what a lot of people discuss, and that is that you are spending time when you are supposed to be writing, you're going back and you're reading and you're editing instead of writing and moving the story forward. And a lot of people will do that. For some it does work. If it doesn't hold you back, more power to you. But if you find yourself, again, editing more than writing and getting those stories out, adjust. Try not going back to edit. Just writing through, getting that story down, then you have something to actually work on and chisel out to make a real story. But I have to disagree when somebody says that. To them, they perceive that as not editing. They figure their first draft is great. Minor adjustments, get it out. They have been writing a very long time, so they are able to write really good that first round. The problem is that not all of our minds work that way. We don't all have the same tools yet, and they don't realize that a lot of people don't work the same as they do. For me, I need to get the story down, fast, out. Boom, done. I cannot sit there and pluck away at a story, trying to make sure that one scene has all the little details. A lot of the time, I need to get that story out. Because if I don't get that story out, that little mind's going to start like slowing down, not wanting to tell a story, going to start balking because I get really bored really easy. So how I write the story is usually I write as everything and anything, but when I find that slow part starting to slug, what I will do is I will make brackets, note, and then write down inside the brackets what I need to do. Either more details in the scene, make sure the name is correct, anything, and then I carry on. Because the important thing for me is to get the story out and on paper. That goes back again to using different words. For one author or writer, a word can mean one thing. For another person, it means another thing. We don't all think the same. We don't all write the same. We don't all work the same. Those things can be helpful to speed us up to get it out. Speeding up, again, is not lowering the quality. You're finding the way that you can speed up your work without sacrificing the quality. I was spending so much time trying to get those sentences perfect and the grammar perfect as per the rules. Don't do this, don't do that. That some writer had or some editor had or somebody had, and I was cutting out my entire voice. I wasn't focusing on bringing the story to life and bringing my voice. I was focused on trying to fit a rule book. Somebody somewhere out there, some mythical rule book of perfection. And I had sacrificed a lot of the quality in the work. Now when people read my work, when I get feedback, there's stuff like it's got a lot of layers. Every time I read the work, I get something else out of it. It's an experience. It's not just a story. It makes me think. It gives me endless questions to figure out. There's richness. There's depth. There's layers to discover in the work. Not just, that was a good read. Next. That's the difference. I want the highest quality of story, read, and experience in my work. Not to fit a rule book. I want a reader to be able to sink into one of my books and completely forget they're reading a book, completely forget all their problems, all the stress, and just completely disappear into that world I create. The issue is that when we strive for perfection and when we strive for doing things the way other people do it, oftentimes what we're ending up following is a set of rules that everybody follows. And I personally don't want a carbon copy society. I want people to think for themselves, to not always follow every single rule, so that we finally start seeing more of these stories from writers who love the work so much that they are able to put out their best story in quality and effort to avoid a set of rules. It's like the old saying, learn the rules so you can break them. If we constantly are trying to follow what everybody else does and seek that perfection, that's what we're doing. We're trying to find a perfection that doesn't exist, but that people around us are saying this is what it is. But if we sought perfection with the work, we wouldn't have had people like Stephen King, like George R. R. Martin, the word kind of went, Shakespeare, all the people that we loved the most. They stood out for a reason, because they were different. Different is not perfect. Different is weird. Different is wacky. And that is what gets us to sink into that story, because they're doing things different. Plenty would argue, plenty will disagree. Go for it. That's the whole point of being individuals. I think you're seeing the point I'm making. Perfect is the same. Good enough, the best you can do, is different, because you are not me. So your best effort, your best quality is not the same as mine. See if just adjusting that word in your language, in how you look at stuff and how you deal with stuff, see if saying, I'm going to do the best that I can, I'm going to strive for good enough or the best. I personally, I can't do the best either. I say I've done the best I can. That's good. But the best, perfect, that kind of stuff, it starts to affect this. And a lot of people who deal with any kind of thoughts around suicide or mental health understand that anything failure, anything not good enough, anything around those kind of phrasings will activate the worst parts of your brain and shut you down really, really hard. It will take you into a dark place. That trigger will get activated, and it will be a really hard process to pull yourself back up and out of that place, especially if anybody's throwing hatred at you or anger, even though rationally you're like, this is their issue, it's not mine. When you deal with issues with the way the mind thinks and works, far too many things can go into that space and cause you issues, cause you to hold back, cause you to give up, cause you to feel like a failure, cause you to spiral into those dark pits. And it's easier if you just adjust the words. Because if you're always hoping to be absolutely perfect at everything you do, the littlest falter can spiral you really hard and really fast. For some, again, this is individualistic. For some, this all might be just nothing to you. You might work best if you constantly strive for perfection. perfection, and it always has to be perfect, and every word you say has to be the absolute perfect. The writing has to be online. You cannot even post a status unless it's absolutely perfect. For one letter even being off, it is wrong, and you thrive by having everything in its perfect little position place. So again, this goes back to individual styles. This video would not be for those people, but this is for the person who, like me, there's a natural, everybody expects perfection from them, demands it, they have it naturally even in themselves, so that even the slightest falter can completely spiral them. This video is just for the person that I'm hoping can understand, number one, why I use the words that I use when I say I go for good enough and do the best that I can, but it's still technically trying to be as perfect as possible. It's just I no longer allow myself to strive for perfection because it holds me back. So if it's holding you back, consider simply adjusting how you look at it, how you say it, how you feel about it, the words that you use. That's who this video is most for. Or if you just take, some of what I said is helpful to you, obviously this is for you too. Release that dream you have into the world, whether it be a book you've written or something else. Once you've done the best that you can, and let another find it. Let another experience it. They're not going to be able to find it and experience it if you don't finally release that. If you don't ever want anyone to read your work, you don't have to follow these guidelines. But if you want to write stories, like for me, I want to write a lot of stories while I still have time. I have a lot to tell, and I want to tell them, and I want you to experience them and enjoy them. So I do have to release that. I do have to get over the fear of not doing that and not publishing and hold myself back. I need to finally just do it. It still is scary. Almost every day, if I start thinking about people reading my work and not liking it or being critical of it, it does get scary. It does get in there. But everybody's going to be critical about something. Every reader's going to have something that they might be able to pick it apart for. That fear doesn't hold me back. I still put the work out there, and I still allow my enjoyment of writing and telling good stories to be out there so you can enjoy it. That's who I want to tell a good story to. I don't want to tell it to me. I can do that all day long, and I've done that most of my life. So make sure that you're not holding yourself back if you want others to read your work strictly out of perfection. Too many hold themselves back based on feedback from others, based on the fear that people will criticize them. And a lot of that criticism comes from people who don't like that you are achieving something. They don't like that you are actually pursuing your dream. Too many people hold themselves back because of criticism, because they worry about it, or because people around them are criticizing them. There are always going to be people out there who are critical, criticizing, have negative things to say, and we're seeing that a lot right now anyway. Be different. Face that. Realize that they are not in the ring, so it's easy for them to be critical, but they're sitting on the sidelines being critical about you. Or even if they are another author, if they're being that kind of critical with you, it's probably they think that there's only one way to do stuff, and there isn't. There's plenty of ways to fit into the marketing realm, plenty of ways to fit into creative, a middle ground. Everybody's going to be critical. Don't hold yourself back for those people. Instead of worrying about it, put your work out there. Inspire another one to put the work out there. Help boost people. That's better path. That's what we need more of. If you've enjoyed this, consider leaving a comment and a like. Tell me if you found it helpful. If you find yourself holding yourself back because of some perfect idea that you have to achieve. If any of this has helped maybe make you rethink things. Share with somebody if you think they could use the boost, or just leave me a comment in general to tell me what you think about this. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that you are able to help somebody smile, or somebody is able to help you smile today. And I hope that you will come back soon, because there will be plenty more to come.